Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back to another late show, live from Los Angeles. Your host, Young Brando. I'm happy to be back with you. I needed to take some time off last week, but we're back with full force. We have some new releases to discuss, and I also want to take a look at the Sotheby's auction that's coming up on April 5th in Hong Kong. A lot of interesting pieces there, more than 200 lots, so there's a lot to go through. But as always, it's an open panel, so feel free to jump on and derail the discussion or presentation as long as it's watch related. You're more than welcome. I look forward to having you, but let me just begin. There are few releases that I couldn't discuss over the last week, so I will start with them. Vulcain, which is being revived by the same group, the same people who have revived the Nevada Grantion, who have revived Excelsior Park, and I think there were a few other brands. I might be blanking out on them, but um, clearly their intention is to put Vulcain back on the map, and not only with the cricket, but with a full lineup. I think that's a very good effort. We have talked about, of course, their iconic alarm watch, which is the cricket. We have talked about the skin diver that they have reintroduced in a number of different dial colors, and they have also integrated into their lineup this chronograph 1970s at a very wearable and unique size, you might say, of 38 millimeters. I think it's an ingenious thing. Again, since um, Guillaume Lede is, I think, the guy's name, and he has a very distinct awareness of what the appeal of these brands are. He genuinely thinks of them as revival, and not in a way that tries to reinvent the wheel, that tries to reimagine and reinterpret what the offering, what the value proposition of the brand is. And I think he has his finger on the pulse. That's certainly what you can say about the successive and successful releases of Nevada Granchen, and certainly um, I would say the same thing about Vulcain and even Excelsior Park. Um, and the four colorways, or the four, well, five, in fact, different dial options that they have here is, I think, very appealing. You have the classic salmon, which has been probably one of the most popular over the year of 2022. It kind of came out of nowhere, um, where everyone thought that green was the new hype color, where everyone thought we were still dwelling with Tiffany blue, both of which are, of course, correct observations. Salmon seemed to be the low key hype color of the year. There's, of course, black one for the two register chronograph. There is sunburst blue with silver chronograph subdials, and then there is the evergreen panda and reverse panda configurations as well. Let's check out the pricing as well as the specifications of the piece. So as I mentioned, these are 38 millimeter pieces. Let me see. Launching on March 22nd, so in about 2 days. I'm glad we didn't miss anything because some of the pieces that I will present today are already gone, but are still important because they speak to certain interesting horological developments and focuses. In this case, you have a piece that's less than 12.5 millimeters thick. In this case, it's 12.40. 5 atmos of a depth rating, which means it has a respectable water resistance for a pump pusher chronograph. The caliber is a hand wound caliber, so you keep that slender profile and a watch that sits closely to your wrist. That's why I mentioned also that it was 38 millimeters, should be a great everyday wearer for a 2-register chronograph, which, by the way, depending on the dial color you choose, can be a very versatile watch. I think with the blue sunburst and with the panda and reverse panda, there is an undeniable sportiness to the whole affair. But of course, with black, with the salmon, and to a large extent, again, with the panda configurations, you can certainly wear this watch for dressier occasions, for occasions that ask for something a little more elevated. And that's something that you can simply adjust with a strap. And as you can see, they give you plenty of different options, even at the point of purchase, as you can see. But hey, I mean, you can even wear something like this on a NATO strap and just kick it about, and I think it will do you well in most occasions. And you can see how even with that boxed or domed crystal, it's pretty sleek from the profile, and it should be an amazing piece to wear. It's listed right under 2,700 in US dollars, and I think each dial color is limited to 100 pieces, if I'm not mistaken. No, they actually have. Okay, so the black one is unlimited. The salmon one is limited to 50 pieces. The panda is limited to 100. The reverse panda is not limited. And the blue sunburst with silver registers is also unlimited. Stainless steel, of course, with a hand wound 4 hertz caliber, 28,800 semi oscillations per hour. I believe the movement is a hand wound Celita based movement, probably SW510. And it will be hiding under a solid stainless steel case back, which, by the way, is completely fine if you ask me, because at the end of the day, you're looking for something that can be worn on a daily basis and that maintains that closeness to the wrist that can slide under any cuff and be worn on more than one occasion. Hey, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. John C says, does Vostok make a reliable watch? Nothing but, I think. Vostok is a great brand. We had a few people in the community who, we kind of lost touch of them with everything that is going on, of course, between Russia and Ukraine. But there were many interesting collectors of Vostok watches in the community. Thank you, St. Peter. And JJ, welcome back. Sorry about that. So these are the new releases by Vulcain, which more or less completes their lineup. They also have soon enough a monopusher chronograph coming, which should prepare us for one of the topics for later tonight. And that will be released in salmon dial configuration as well as a black with kind of gilt accents. A pulsometer is present, as you can see, for this monopusher piece, which means that you start the chronograph, you engage the chronograph, count up to 30 pulses, and when you stop, that should give you an estimate of the heartbeat of your patient or of yourself. That also works. So it's going to be a very interesting year for Vulcain and the comeback they have started with the cricket tradition and classique is seemingly completed by the skin diver, the 70s chronograph, and later on also a monopusher chronograph. An interesting collaboration is in the works with the sister company of Vulcain between Nevada Granson and Fratello. I think this was released last week as well. Once again, there are plenty of different dial options, and you have, in this case, a design that's much more sporty, much more dynamic, and much more colorful in a certain way. So if you thought that the 70s chronographs by Vulcain were either a little too dull or a little more expensive, they also have these 5 different chronographs that just opened today at 4 p.m. Central European, and they have a pre-order for $1,500 a piece for the week. You have a 3-register chronograph with a case shape that's more akin to tonneau rather than a classic round. Of course, the minutes and seconds track has that racing theme. The finish of the dials is what they call grenet in French, kind of something akin to a frosted finish. Of course, it's safe to assume at this price point that the dials are stamped, but nevertheless, it gives you a little more of texture, a little more of depth on the dial. You have 3 registered chronographs in all the 5 cases. As you can see, you have kind of coffee brown color, black with green and orange accents, more like a charcoal gray perhaps, but you know what I mean. You have silvered, off-white, a panda with orange accents, and also a reverse panda as well. And you have a bracelet, matching bracelets that's very reminiscent to a Omega Speedmaster style number, and you basically have, again, a 38 millimeter case, which should have a little more presence thanks to that wider tonneau shape on the wrist, and also a thicker piece that's 13.75 millimeters. I think, honestly, once again, these kinds of dimensions are a little underrated, if you ask me. I think 38 actually for a chronograph is very nice, and it's really, I wouldn't say it's a blind spot in the market, but certainly it is a niche in the market that's not well attended. For a very long time, especially in early 2000s, chronographs were watches that were larger than life, right? Breitling's approach to the chronograph with 40, 47, 43, 44 millimeter pieces really dominated those years. Of course, the Speedmaster is a little larger than the Daytona, which at some point at least was its direct competitor. And it's hard to find pieces that are under 40 millimeters, which is what made, when it was still in production, Breguet's revival of the Type 20 a very interesting option indeed. Now, when it comes to this particular piece, I think it's very balanced between 38 millimeters on this barrel or tonneau shaped case, and the thickness is under 14 millimeters. Sometimes people complain about a certain imbalance when the thickness is approaching 15 millimeters, but I think this should sit nicely. At least the lifestyle pictures that Fratello is providing makes it look pretty nice on the wrist. I mean, in all these different examples, 1,500 euros before VAT. There will be 10 pieces of each dial variation for 50 pieces in total. So if you find it compelling, it's better to act now than wait. It may be already, some dials may already be gone. It has the same movement, seemingly, as the Vulcain chronographs that we just talked about. The sportiness is not limited to only the aesthetics, only the appearance, as it has 10 atmos of a depth rating, 100 meters of water resistance. In this case, you have a display case back with a sapphire glass that is engraved to commemorate this special edition. And the piece is apparently exclusively available in this. Wow, it's sold in all the dial variations. Amazing. Okay. Well, it doesn't take long for them, huh? I mean, I should have presented on these last week, I guess, but it's never too late because apparently they will be released soon enough at a slightly higher price point. So hopefully it will still be an interesting value proposition. I think they can be. Basically they will be an alternative to the Vulcain 1970s that we just presented. And I appreciate that Guillaume Lede has enough presence of mind so that he charts different paths for all these brands to go for. Another day we can look at Excelsior Park and try to tease out what he's trying to do with that particular brand. I wanted to talk a little bit about the new Octofinissimo with the salmon dial. That's a 50-piece North American limited edition. You might remember that earlier in the year, Bvlgari had produced 15 pieces for its esteemed retailer in Milano, Pisa Jewelry. This particular edition of the titanium with grain brushed salmon dial with laser engraved indices. For the US limited edition, they went with a hue that's a little richer in purple than pink, so kind of a mauve hue, I guess. And it is a sunray brushed dial or a sunburst dial that matches the contrasted facets of the stainless steel example, which they chose as a canvas for this particular limited edition. And again, this is not a practice that I like too much, honestly, whether we are talking about established brands or micro brands. I get a little tired of all these limited editions, exclusives and collaborations. It does get old quite fast, but at least I can see the appeal of this particular dial color. I really do like it. I have, however, always thought that the kind of monotonous appearance of the piece, whether it is with that silver dial in combination with the stainless steel or the darker gray in combination with titanium, I think that's where the watch paradoxically really shines because it looks every bit of the integral piece of design that it is. But this is a nice touch. I always thought that that this particular brushed grain was a really nice touch, especially because it's kind of brushed on the bias, so to speak. I thought that was very elegant, and because you have not applied indices but laser engraved indices and Arabic numerals at 12 and 6 o'clock, I thought it was, again, something true to the architectural elements of the design of this piece. And I have commented before that it took me a while to even notice that the dial was sterile, so to speak, that it even lacked the branding of Bulgari or Pisa, for that matter, right? They could have gone with that sort of excessive and extravagant idea of putting both of the brands on the dial, but in fact they ended up foregoing both, which once again I think really brings forth the minimalist aesthetic of the face of the watch, which of course lives up to how this piece actually wears, thanks to its ultra thin caliber on the wrist. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but Philips has a very interesting piece for their upcoming Hong Kong auction. They're also opening a new headquarters in the West Kowloon Cultural District. This is going to be their new Asia headquarters, and apparently they have acquired not only this piece, but the entire collection of watches that belonged to the so-called last emperor of the Qing dynasty, the last emperor of China. So this is going to be a very interesting auction indeed, and they have called it the Imperial Patek. This is basically a Calatrava reference 96 that is a triple calendar and a moon phase as well. It has these pink gilt feuille hands, pointer dates along the periphery of the dial, Arabic numerals for the hour markers, the two openings right at the center of the dial, which is admittedly not the best placement, are for the day of the week and the month. And finally, of course, you have a subdial for small seconds at 6 o'clock and the moon phase indicator that is in the form of an upward facing crescent, actually, at 12 o'clock. And of course, you have the long branding of the time, right? Patek Philippe et Company. Only 7 examples of this Patek Philippe reference with a triple calendar and a moon phase indicator were previously known, apparently, and this is only the 8th to appear in the market. Apparently, these some of the artifacts of the collection will be on view in Hong Kong from March 18 until the end of the month. So they're already there. And there will be an international tour that will include destinations in New York, Singapore, London, Taipei, and Geneva. And the pieces will be included at a later sale. I'm guessing this is actually a platinum piece. I might have to double check this. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a very fascinating piece. Of course, just as a heads up, the 96 is often understood as the classic Patek Philippe Calatrava. Of course, um, if I'm not mistaken, the name Calatrava came into currency much later, but 96 is understood to be the definitive reference. It is often presented as time only, which is what makes this even more unique as one of only 8. And um, I would look forward to seeing it in person. I hope I can somehow make it to one of the destinations, maybe New York. Let's see when it will actually stopping by. Of course, considering the time period, um, it's a pretty diminutive watch. It is, of course, right around 31 millimeters, if I'm not mistaken. It's a reference that stayed in production for a very long time. A lot of the pieces with Breguet numerals on the dial are incredibly desirable still. But this piece, of course, has its unique charm, having once belonged to the last emperor. There's another piece that I I missed, but I think I'll simply try to talk about it, even though it's already sold out again. In this case, the brand Angelus, in collaboration with Messina Lab, produced this monopusher chronograph that also doubles up as a doctor's watch, since it has a multimeter scale that involves a pulsometer that is graduated for 10 pulsations and an asthmometer that is graduated for 5 respirations. The piece is basically a reproduction of this historic reference of Angelus or Angelus, which has a unique cyclops, unique magnifier for the pulsometer that travels across the periphery of a quarter of the dial on the crystal there, highlighting the pulsometer scale of the watch. And from another perspective, and you can see how the pulsometer is actually color coded, right? From a rather resting heart rate of that is indicated in black, graduating to green, and finally reaching red as it increases. The most interesting part, perhaps, is the beating heart of this watch, caliber A5000. It's a familiar monopusher movement. This is a modified version of that monopusher chronograph movement that Denis Flageolet and François-Paul Jaune built for Cartier when Cartier was reviving its Tortue monopusher chronograph for the CP series. They wanted to be more loyal to the Angelus design, so they moved the pusher separately to 2 o'clock. In the original caliber, the 045 MC, which you can see here if I can find it. Let me see. This is the original 045 MC that was made by Technique Horloger Appliquée for Cartier Paris, and everything is actually controlled by the crown, which doubles up as the monopusher of the chronograph. And monopusher is really a very straightforward complication. It just means that you control the start, stop, and reset function through that single pusher and nothing else. I don't know what kind of arrangement Angelus has with THA. As far as I know, Denis Flageolet had at least some base movements that he carried to de Bethune, which he used in DB1 and DB8 chronographs. I'll show you one of those in a little bit. As far as I know, later on, THA was bought by Bvlgari, and their manufacture as well as their licenses are I think right now used for their patents are now used for Carl F. Bvlgari watches. So I don't really know what allowed Angelus to use this caliber for their watches, how they could carry over this monopusher caliber in their collaboration with Messina Lab, but it's certainly very impressive. And again, even with the modification, I genuinely appreciate the vintage vibe conveyed by that layout. And again, it's a very utilitarian execution as well. At the end of the day, uh, unless you are yearning for a flyback function, there's nothing wrong with having this kind of simplified, um, this kind of minimalized, almost purified application of the chronograph function. It's becoming increasingly popular. We were just looking at Vulcain, which is going to bring out its own version towards the end of the year. Of course, there's a burgeoning interest in the CPCP Tortue monopoussoir, Cartier's version of the monopusher that they produced in late 90s and early 2000s. This Angelus chronograph, which was a limited edition of 99 pieces, produced in collaboration with Messina Lab, almost immediately sold out. And Habring 2, of course, has more or less mastered this particular execution, having essentially used the configuration both for their split-second chronographs, for their perpetual calendar chronographs, and also, of course, in this particular example, which used to be the perpetual calendar split-second chronograph. Hey, Tim. Nice to see you, man. Another interesting development came from H. Moser. You know, a lot of these brands started listening to the customers, started perhaps talking with the collectors, and the trend towards, again, smaller watches continues, as you can see here in H. Moser's new release in the Pioneer series, with both the 3-hander and the chronograph now in 40 millimeter. Sorry, I meant to say the 3-hander and the tourbillon. They use this as an opportunity to release a new dial color in this Arctic blue smoked finish, very discreet branding in this elegant script at 12 o'clock. Both the pieces are presented on a rubber band, which really brings out the sporty aspect of the watch. and you have in each case a stainless steel case that has a blasted finish, kind of an oversized crown. The tourbillon lists right under 50,000 in Swiss francs, and the three-hander is right under 13,000. They should have better pictures of these. Okay, there we go. As you see, they have a unique scalloped case design. And of course, they had already models in their catalog that were much more modestly sized, around 40 millimeters, especially in the Endeavor series. But the Pioneer, I think, is actually an interesting piece of news because they are, this is their sportier version, right? That they are producing smaller watches even for their simple everyday wear sports line, and that they are presenting not only a three-hander but also a tourbillon for this case size, I think is an important development. Speaking, by the way, of that chronograph movement, I had the pleasure of actually visiting the touring exhibition Watchbox has for De Bethune and FP Jean in Los Angeles. And they had basically the entire catalog of the two brands. Of course, their location is not too far away from the FP Jean boutique in Los Angeles. So beyond the historic examples, that wasn't as impressive. But when it comes to De Bethune, of course, it's sometimes difficult to find, two of their pieces under the same roof. In this case, they had the entire catalog of a 2-decade plus history of De Bethune with duplicates of certain references. And this was probably the jewel on the crown, and no pun intended, because it is a DB1, which is the very first offering by De Bethune when Zanetta and Flageolet established the brand. This particular example has a very low case number as well. Let me say it's top 3, and it's not 1 or not 3. And it is an expression, I think, of both a kind of restrained minimalism and an extravagant and exacting finesse. When you look at the dial, it's absolutely pure heat blued Breguet style hands against silvered guilloche dial, two register chronograph, blue Roman numerals for the hours, and Arabic numerals for the seconds and minutes. A centrally deployed seconds hand, of course, a continuously running second subdial at 9 o'clock, and a 30-minute counter at 3 o'clock. This was basically as close as they could have to an in-house caliber at the moment of their inception. We have just talked about how Denis Flageolet built this movement, this monopusher chronograph movement, in collaboration with one François Paul Jean. At the time, they urged Cartier to revive their interwar period classic, the Tortue Monopoussoir, for their Collection Privée Cartier Paris collection. And this is a caliber that de Bethune was also going to use in DB8, which is a single register chronograph as well, with a 45-hour totalizer, which collectors sometimes fondly call the football timer, since 45 minutes is, of course, the length of a half in a game of football, or soccer, as the Americans have it. Yeah, Tim G agrees with the new proportions of the Pioneer for Moser. It needed to be 40 millimeters, 43 was too big. Yeah, what is really exceptional, of course, about this particular piece, which makes it practically a one of a kind, is the baguette cut sapphires that decorate the case band, and the diamond encrusted bullet shaped lugs, which of course quickly became part of the house aesthetic for de Bethune. And you have a watch here that, on the one hand, pays utmost respect with restrained elegance to centuries of high horology, but also with both the finesse of the gem setting and the singular shape of the lugs points towards the 2 decades of innovation and experimentation that was going to follow. It was a great pleasure to see it, to examine it, and to wear it as well for a little bit at Watchbox Los Angeles. I really appreciated it, and it wears really well. I think mostly thanks to the case design as well as the profile, because that piece is actually 42 millimeters in case diameter. But since the lugs are have this drooping profile and are rather stubby, it wears really well. I mean, I have very wimpy wrists, very skinny wrists. So if it looks good on me, it should look good on the average woman for sure. All right, let's see. What else do we have? There's a Seiko and an Oleg and vice that I wanted to discuss with you. Um, so when you might know the story, it's rehearsed in a number of different ways, but along with Zinn, Oleg and Weiss, which is Zurich-based watchmaker out of Switzerland, was one of the companies that got the cases, movements, and materials, as well as ostensibly the rights to the design of the Navi timer when Breitling was going through the quartz crisis, um, or rather dealing with the fallout of the quartz crisis. Um, it is a brand that lay dormant for a while, but is has been uh, revived in the last few years, benefiting from this boom in horology, and they have a very interesting chronograph that they are um, reintroducing that I think is certainly worth a look, because of a number of things. I think first of all, um, it's a decent chronograph in its own right, but it combines that three register chronograph look with the date at 6 o'clock with a case that's up to 500 meters of water resistant, 50 atmos of a depth rating, and it also has rotational timing bezel that doubles up as a compass bezel as well. A nice marine blue dial with contrasting white chronograph registers, particular accents for the 30-minute totalizer. As you can see, both thanks to the domed crystal and the extended or intensified water resistance, you have a case profile that's pretty thick, a solid case back, and a matching 7-row beads of right bracelet completes the look. A nice hunk on the wrist that's around 40 millimeters in thickness and 16.8 millimeters, sorry, 40 millimeters almost in case diameter, and 16.8 millimeters in thickness. And it has a fully rotational, again, compass bezel with a 60-minute timer as well. And the first 20 minutes is graduated and highlighted to double up as a dive timer. The Astrochron is built on a Valjoux 7753 caliber, so a standard workhorse chronograph, and has that nautical blue dial with lots of super luminova on the hands as well as the hour markers. and the pricing is quite comparable to what we were looking at for the standard pricing of the Fratello Nevada Grantian racing chronograph, for the Vulcain chronograph 1970s, more so because that was 2700 as well. The Oleg and Weiss Astrochron is right under 2700 as well, specifically $2,687.52 in US dollars. I think it's a very nice triple register chronograph. A little off the beaten path, which is how we like it here. Still abiding to elements of classical design. If you are kind of invested in that, somewhat compelling combination of two of the most popular genres of sports watches between the chronograph and a dive watch, I think this could be a very interesting offering. I think it offers quite a lot and something rather different at the price point. So it's certainly worth considering. Seiko 5 doesn't seem to stop. They are coming up with another limited edition, which distinguishes itself by its dial. This is the Seiko 5 Sports 55th Anniversary Masked Rider Limited Edition. It's kind of a tribute to an old school Japanese TV series, The Masked Rider, which was first broadcast in 1971, apparently, and had an archival model that has been called the Masked Rider by the collectors. The watch more or less follows the design cues of the original Masked Rider, worn by the character, but improves it with this textured green dial, which is supposed to replicate the color and texture of the mask that the protagonist of the series wears. You have a very interesting brushed bezel for the timer, for the rotational bezel that is graduated up to 15 minutes, as you can see. And otherwise, the piece has the same dimensions and design elements as that classic SKX inspired Seiko 5 dive style design, with the crown at 4 o'clock, the day-date display at 3 o'clock, and 100 meters of water resistance. You have a calf strap, which completes the look with textured black appearance and a red calfskin lining on the inside, which apparently evokes the red scarf that the Masked Rider is wearing. The case back features the Tachibana Racing logo, which is used in the design of the motorcycle and belt of the film. It will also be marked limited edition, one of 4,000. So 4,000 pieces of a limited edition for this Seiko 5 Sports 55th Anniversary Masked Rider. Apparently, it also comes in a special collector's box. Price will be 450 euros. So quite normal for the Seiko 5 diver at this range. Okay, now without further ado, let's go to the lots on the Sotheby's important watches auction for Hong Kong that will be live on April 5th. As always, if you have any particular requests, if you want me to pay attention to a specific lot, feel free to send it in with a super chat and I will get back to you right away. I'll quickly grab some water, but here is lot one, which is um, Jarajanta Jump Hour watch with retrograde minutes. It's one of those famous Mickey Mouse watches. I will get back to you in a minute. Okay, let's go. Gérard Janta produced a lot of complicated watches actually under his brand, but these retro and bi-retro designs, meaning jump hour watches with retrograde minutes, and retrograde date were kind of the backbone of the brand. He had a lot of these made with these Disney characters. The Mickey Mouse is the most popular, of course, but there were those with Minnie Mouse and Donald Duck and so many other Daffy Duck and all the other characters as well. Um, and oftentimes they strike a particular kind of pose. Uh, Frequently, it's something quirky and sporty all at once, and uh, it's usually the instrument, the tool, or one of the hands that doubles up as the minute hand. Of course, the hour is expressed through an opening um, on the dial that is placed accordingly. Here it's at the imaginary 4 o'clock position, even though it shows 5 at this moment. A lot of times these are mother of pearl dials with the cartoon character superimposed on it. The Janta branding is at 6 o'clock, and the minutes are expressed as a fan that takes most of the upper half of the watch. This is a white gold piece with a matching bracelet from around 2004. So after the brand was already bought by Bvlgari. As you can see, this is a licensed Disney product. And it comes with its box and warranty card as well. Bought from Hourglass. Hourglass, as you might know, and you would remember this from previous episodes on this channel, at one point owned both the Janta brand and the Daniel Roth brand. And even as they sold both of these brands to Bvlgari around year 2000, they preserved the rights to those brands in Asia. They preserved they reserved the right to distribute those brands in the Asian region. So it's not a coincidence that this watch was retailed once by the Hourglass in Singapore. The estimate at its lower end is 80,000 Hong Kong dollars, which is roughly $10,000, 80,000 to 120,000 in Hong Kong dollars. So roughly you divide it by 8 to get closer to US dollars. I think we can translate it right here. Okay, that's great. 10,000 to 15,000 roughly. Lot number 2 is a Snoopy Award Eyes on the Stars Omega Speedmaster from around the same time period. Once again, it comes with its box and certificate of authenticity, and it has an estimated value of 12,750 to 25,000 US dollars, roughly speaking. Next up, we have a Rolex Kermit. These were the pieces that were introduced around 2003 for the 50th anniversary of the Submariner with a unique green bezel. This year, of course, we are celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Submariner. Everyone is waiting what Rolex has in store to celebrate its anniversaries, the 70th anniversary of the Submariner, the 60th anniversary of the Daytona. We don't quite know, but this was a model line that was introduced in 2003 and left its place to the so-called Hulk in the era of ceramic bezel inserts, which itself was discontinued around 2019. Lot 3 is a 2008 example of the Kermit, the 50th anniversary Rolex Submariner, and it has an estimated value of 12,750 to 25,000 in US dollars. We have Rolex Sea Dweller from its 50th anniversary, 2019. This is a model that Rolex still has in the catalog, but of course, since there are different iterations of the model, different marks of the dial, so to speak, the uh, actual 50th anniversary edition belonging to year 2019 might have extra appeal to some. This was the reference of the Sea Dweller 1266 00, which increased the size of the watch proportionally to a 43 millimeter case diameter and a bracelet to match with a clasp to match. In many ways, with its proportions, the modern Sea Dweller also redefined the modern proportions of a Rolex sports watch. As you know, not much later in 2021, the entire Submariner line was redesigned and reintroduced as well. And it followed not the same size, but certainly similar proportions to the ones that were set in stone in the modern Sea Dweller line. So, in many ways, this 50th anniversary edition is a very important one for Rolex, the 50th anniversary Sea Dweller reference 126600. In this case, it has an estimate of roughly 9,000 to 12,750 in US dollars. We have a lovely 5-digit Rolex Daytona 16520, the famous reference that was introduced for the first time in 1988. It was the first Rolex Cosmograph Daytona with a self-winding caliber, which Rolex built on the base of the famous Zenit El Primero caliber 400. As you can tell from the name, that was one of the first, if not the first, integrated self-winding chronograph movements in the entire world. Rolex used it as the beating heart of their Daytona from 1988 to 2000, by which time they they reinvigorated, they renewed the series with caliber 4130, which announced, of course, the advent of modern Rolex, properly speaking, including many, many important keywords and hallmarks of mass produced Swiss watches in our time. In-house movements, vertical integration, all of these phrases, all of these terms that have become industry mantras were laid in place with the renewal of the Daytona. But before that renewal, before caliber 4130, there was 16520 that ran on caliber 4030, 4030, which was based on Zenit. And in this case, you have an example with a beautiful white dial. The three chronograph registers have outer rings in black, which give this chronograph a very nuanced panda look, very elegant and very versatile. From 1997, it looks like a very clean example. At lot number 6, this Rolex Cosmograph Daytona reference 16520 has an estimated value of 19,000 to 25,000 in US dollars. Continuing variation with a variation on the theme, this is lot number 9, a Rolex Cosmograph Daytona reference 116505. This takes us into the 6 digits, into the in-house movement, caliber 4130. Here we have Rolex's proprietary 18-karat pink gold Everose on case and the matching oyster bracelet, of course, polished center links that were already the hallmark of the Daytona ever since it switched to a self-winding movement. 16520. You have a dial that is in that ivory color with 3 chronograph registers that have outer rings that match the pink gilt shades that dominates the rest of the watch as well. And those outer rings are very nicely radially guilloched to provide some dimension and contrast to the dial. The piece comes with its warranty card and its booklets too, apparently. And lot 9, a Cosmograph Daytona 116505, an Everose on a matching oyster bracelet, is expected to fetch an amount between 25,500 to 38,000 in US dollars. Number 11, this is a Daytona 116520, so the 6 digits, the first in-house caliber version in stainless steel from 2013. In pristine condition from about 10 years ago. Comes practically with its stickers, as the gray marketeers call it, partial stickers, right? And it has a black dial with silver outer rings on the 3 chronograph registers that mesh with the rest of the design. the 6 digits reference of the Daytona, both as the first generation of Rolex Cosmograph Daytonas with a self-winding caliber, and also I think as a kind of throwback before things really went out of control with the introduction of ceramic tachometer bezels. I think has been slowly but surely gaining ground and becoming a very attractive option for those who are not dead set on the ceramic bezel, or who simply cannot really acquire one, cannot really obtain one through the official channels or otherwise. Um, the 5 and 6 digit Daytonas in stainless steel, I think, are incredibly attractive. My my vote would be towards the 5 digit because it is very historically important. It's the first self-winding Rolex Cosmograph Daytona. It is also the last of an era. In a way, Rolex is not going back to sourcing chronograph calibers from someone else anytime soon. Even if it would be, it wouldn't be Zenit, which belongs to another company, another conglomerate at this point in time. So I would highly recommend the 16520 as a reference. Um, as you know, our friend Jake Brooks, JB, in the chat, has been a proud owner of one since a few months. Hey, St. Peter, how are you, man?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm okay. How are you?
Good. I hope I didn't make you wait for too long.
Oh, no, not at all. I was burnt out on packing. I had to give up at some point. I really, really despise this process, having to pack all your stuff, move, unpack it. Because
So
I'm a pack
where?
rat. I'm a pack rat, so it's like every time I pack up this stuff that I've just had sitting on a shelf for, in this
Mhm.
case, it's been about 3 years since I've been in my current place. So I'm like packing stuff now where I'm like, I haven't done anything with this in 3 years. I should probably just get rid of it. But sometimes it's something that's very sentimental, or like it has some intrinsic value, or it's a difficult to dispose of item. It's
Mhm.
not just something I could like leave out on the street for sanitation kind of thing. So it's like this awkward, like, oh, well, what do I do with it? And so I haven't been able to edit as much this time as I
So you
normally
are you are still at your old place, but mostly packed, or
I'm probably, I would say I'm a good, like, I think I'm about 50 to 60% through the packing process. I mean, I own a lot of furniture that I designed and built. That I
nice?
just Yeah, it is nice because I several of the pieces now, I've disassembled, moved, and reassembled at multiple locations. And I built it. It was during a period of time that I was like really into robustness and permanence, so I built some very heavy duty stuff that,
Ooh.
regrettably, is every time you have to move it, you tell yourself, like, why did I make it so heavy? But the nice thing about making it heavy is that it can take a beating, and it will withstand the test of time, which is ultimately what I did. But you learn from these experiences, right? You make a piece and then you say, hey, next time I think I want to make it really strong and lightweight. Like, how do you do both at the same time? But
Amazing.
it's getting done. I think the big move's going to be on Sunday, and then I'll probably have like a little
Okay.
leftover, lightweight trips that I'll have to do to kind of finish everything up. But
Cool.
this week's going to be a long one.
Nice.
But speaking of 2013, so I was taking a look at a Christie's auction from
Uh huh.
2013 the other day. I think it was the link that drew me there was I think it was Monochrome. One of the watch blogs wrote an article about predictions for Rolex for next year, and I think they had a white dial Explorer 1. And, of
Mm.
course, they said, like, hey, this might seem like a fantasy, but it's actually been done before. And they had the hyperlink to the Christie's auction. I'm pretty sure it was Christie's, but it may have been a different auction house. And I think in 2013, that piece sold for, it was a high number. It was like 170 or 180 Swiss francs, something like that,
Mm.
which was pretty impressive. But as I continued to click through the results for that auction, I looked through every lot, and I was like,
Don't.
"Oh my
Don't.
god, oh my god!" I mean,
Don't.
it was like this was a period of time that they were doing lots of, yeah, there you go. They were doing lots of multiple watches at a time. It would be like a lot of 2 solid gold day dates, and they
Mhm.
sold for, they sold for, I don't know, 10,000, 11, 11,000, for 2 decent condition day
I mean,
dates.
obviously, this being a unicorn, even at that point in time, a decade ago, it sold for 171,750 in Swiss francs. I mean, it would sell even in these conditions. I think 2, 3 times that easily right now. Um, yeah, it's a very unique piece. Reference 6610 from around 1958.
I mean, it's beautiful.
It really is.
And it seems like the white, like, the white has taken on that kind of cream that some of the vintage Rolex pieces do, but it seems to actually have remained quite crisp, considering
Yeah.
how old it was at this period of time.
Yeah, and in a way, it kind of fits the theme too, right? Because Rolex was capitalizing, of course, on that Mount Everest expedition that ended in the glorious conquest of
Of course.
Tenzing Norgay and Sir Hillary. Hillary.
This
Um,
is the original Polar, right?
well, basically, except this this is a unicorn. I don't think I don't know if there were multiple pieces or if this was a prototype. Let's see if the lot essay gives us anything, if there is a lot essay to begin
Hmm.
with. It says reference 6610 was launched in 1955, fitted with caliber 1030, as well as the white printed center seconds hand, typical for Rolex sports watches of the period. The present watch, however, is particularly unusual and rare as it is fitted with a highly attractive off white dial and matching ivory colored luminous material to numerals and hands. The unusual dial was almost certainly made by special order. Yeah. Um,
That's for the this is for the real collectors. It's for the real hardcore collectors, a piece like this.
I mean, again, it's the reason I said it's perhaps more true to form is because, look, this is, for example, the Oyster Perpetual that Sir Edmund Hillary wore to the peak of Mount Everest. So that had a white dial. So why not? Right? It would make sense.
Very nice. How do they refer to those sharp triangular hour markers?
Um, I want to say arrow.
Arrow.
Yeah.
It's a good look. I like that. I know kind of like Omega's doing like a kind of like a truncated version of that with the Aquaterras now, but
And I also like the alpha hands too, the kind of sharp sword with kind of angular stems here.
and I love it when they put different colored text on the dial.
Yeah.
It's just so nice, it really makes a huge difference because I mean, it's a critique obviously of this brand in particular, but they do have quite a bit of text on the dial. That's
Yeah.
something that people criticize often, although you can barely see it. It's hard to even read a lot of it without a loop, but it's still something that's kind of present there on the dial, and it's just so nice when they have. In this case, it's so funny that the only word that's a different color is officially.
Makes absolutely no sense, but it's Rolex. It's Rolex. You see one thing, you are completely enchanted. Anywhere else, it wouldn't make sense. Anywhere else, like you said, it would be subject to criticism. In this case, it looks good.
It's so funny, it's like they put certified chronometer on there, and some guy was like, no, we need to put officially in red right above that, just so they know.
Well, then again, of course, this whole chronometer thing was a particular point of pride for Rolex, and at the end of next month, of course, a very special piece is coming into auction in Monaco. This The president's
Hmm.
yacht master that houses, of course, the 10 tenth million chronometer movement in it.
It's pretty amazing. I love that piece.
Yeah, it looks good too with the shirted dial. I mean, no doubt about it.
I you know I when they do round cut gem sets on a dial with a round bezel like that,
Hmm.
it's just I just feel like it's so much more appealing than those conventional like the four pronged uh indexes that you see on
Hmm.
most contemporary set dials. I really wish they just
Right.
incorporated this more, because it reads more like a normal sport dial loom plot.
That's right. Yeah, in the same way that the baguette cut diamonds on the platinum Daytona, I guess, kind of read like you know luminous markers before you actually start turning the watch around.
That piece probably feels amazing to wear.
I'm sure. I mean, Rolex president at the time had it made for himself in 1992, Patrick Heinige. So it must be cool.
That's the man, huh?
Yeah, you know, the receding hairline didn't hold him back, so I'm not gonna let it hold me back either.
You just got to own it.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So that reference that we were just looking at, that Daytona before I hopped on, I think that
Mm.
for me is kind of like my peak Daytona.
Yeah,
Um,
the 6 digit.
yeah, I think the six digit, for some reason, I'm very like in my mind. I think when I first started to get captivated by the Daytona as a model, it was looking at these references. I think precious metal
Hmm.
ones. Like, I think it
Oh.
may have even been, as I don't know, as funny as this might sound, like I think I remember seeing it was some celebrity wearing like a full yellow gold. It may not have actually been
Mm.
a six digit, but it had that bezel. It was like a Hollywood, like it was like Brad Pitt or like a Tom Cruise or like someone like that. I just remember seeing like this full yellow gold Daytona with that nice smooth. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that thing is, but that's a Zenith one, right? You could tell by
Yeah.
it's got the slimmer indexes, and the tachometer scale is different also, right? That's one of the ways you can kind of identify them, or maybe
Is it?
not. Maybe not.
Maybe there's a minor difference that I'm missing and not quite catching right away
The sub
on.
dials is the big one, right?
Yeah. Um, the immediate thing, the easiest one, is that it has the continuous running seconds at 9 o'clock rather than 6, which is the in-house movement. And then, of course, the placement of the subdials, which allows you to basically draw crosshairs that perfectly divides both the main dial and the subdials and goes right through the crown as well. Um, and like you said, the indices are just a little bit different. You know, the 6 digit is stubbier and shorter. The 5 digit is a little longer and more lean.
I think one of those 6-digit ones in that 2013 Christie's auction sold for 4 figures. Or actually, it may have been a 5-digit.
Mm.
I think it was, but I just remember seeing that and I was like, man, those were the
This,
days.
I mean, this is an incredible example, by the way. It's on Chrono 24 now, but full set looks pretty sharp, you know, and not much of a funny business, I guess, because the hallmarks are quite crisp as well. Certainly seen polish, but not to the extent that, you know, it's been reduced in any way.
Hmm.
And you get, you know, full set, including outer boxes, even, which is pretty cool.
It's like a nice, like high polish mahogany box. Also, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. I mean, again,
What are they
it's
asking for this?
48,000.
Huh. Still, it's not that far off from what a retail full metal would cost, right?
Yes, yes. I mean, I think, you know, really for a precious metal Daytona, of course, I understand the pull of Oyster Flex, especially. I know you have pretty unique models, you know, the so-called John Mayer. You have the white gold with the beautiful blue dial. You know, I think what is that 116509, 116508 is the John Mayer, etc. I mean, you know, you have pretty good examples. The meteorite dials, you know, the baguette cut diamonds and whatever else. But for the yellow gold, I think the 5 digit is the sweet spot. You know, if you are rolling in that range, I think something like this to me is you know, it's very desirable. Again, they're not coming back, huh? You know, so
Yeah, right,
if
right.
and you know, it's neo vintage. You know, you won't feel like you are really in another universe, because I understand, you know, for people who have always known contemporary Rolex watches, that transition can be hard to manage. You know, what's this? It doesn't weigh like anything, and the bracelets are this, and you know, the production quality is that, etc. So there can be a lot of caveats for someone who has never dealt with, who has never worn, who has never collected vintage pieces. But the late 90s is, I think, in many ways a sweet spot for Rolex. You know, it still has a lot of the vintage charm that made addicts and enthusiasts from people like me. And it has also a lot of what Rolex suggests, what it evokes in modern time as well. And of course, you will have a little more substance, a little more heft in precious metal, even though it will probably still not be quite comparable to the contemporary era, right? So if you're really wedded to that weight of a modern piece, maybe that can be a con for something like this, a negative aspect. But for me, actually, that's a good thing for a sports watch. Anyway,
I feel like I'm surprised at what the prices of these are at. Like, if this is like kind of a regular market price. I mean, maybe this is just with the market cooling. Like, were they ever higher than this?
Slightly, maybe. Slightly, I would say. Honestly, it's always been the 16528 has always been in a way kind of an open secret when it comes to the Daytona, because again, people can get a little picky um, when it comes to the weight of especially gold watches. They want the modern thing, they want that heft, they want that everyday wearability. um, Something like this, of course, might not necessarily provide on those accounts, but as as a collectible piece that you can also wear on a pretty often, on a pretty frequent basis, I think it's really amazing. I mean, put this on a nice leather strap. You can even wear it on an everyday basis.
Yeah, this is a sweet piece. Still slightly outside of my range, but although the other day I was looking at the not the what was it? Not the arcade. What's the other rectangular case? Langa.
Cabaret.
Yeah, man, you could still get those in the 15 to 17 range for like decent
Mm.
quality, and it has so much to offer. Like it's a Langa. It's from their earlier catalog. It's got the big date. Um, like really interesting rectangular case. I could see how to some people this is like unappealing from a
Mhm.
design standpoint, just the overall shape of it. But like I thought, like there was a period of time that I thought these black dials were slightly more appealing because of the contrast with the date and the subseconds.
Mhm.
But then I think I'm kind of leaning more towards the white dial, rose and white dial. These seem to be like some of the more affordable ones. I feel like
Mm.
with a lighter color strap, like this could be pretty cool.
Amazing watch, man. I like the rectangular pieces. And this is a very unique one, again, because of the big date, um, because of the form fitted movement with, that has an exhibition case back. um, and again, they haven't made any compromises in terms of their design aesthetic. You still get those distinctive alpha hands that match the material of the case. Again, you still get that big date at 12 o'clock, oversized subdial for the seconds. So it's in a way in the same category as the reverso and the tank, but also very much a thing of its own, which is what Lange does best.
I just love like I just think this is a total sleeper. You know,
It really
for
is.
just for what you get. I know rectangular case shapes are tough for some. I mean, obviously for me, I'm very partial to them, and I think for an entry point into the brand, it's like at this price point, like you're talking, this is cheaper than a bluesy at retail. And it's it's like, okay, yeah, you're not getting a full bracelet, but it's very
Well,
appealing.
that's a compelling argument. Of course, we're talking about very different genres of watch, but even that being said, this is a very interesting offering. I understand also why Lange doesn't make rectangular watches anymore, except for very limited edition or niche things. I mean, after all, they belong to Richemont, and Richemont already has Cartier and Jaeger-LeCoultre. So
Mm, makes sense.
it's
It makes sense.
And it's already hard to make a dent in that market, which people so readily identify with Cartier tank and Jaeger-LeCoultre reverse. So if you're a little more, you know, quote unquote in the know, or a little bit more flamboyant, let's put it like that. But yeah, this is certainly. I mean, even the Arcada, I think, is quite interesting. That of course is more of an elliptical piece than outright rectangular, and it was introduced as a woman's watch. So a lot of times the um, most examples of it might register as too small, but the larger version of it is also an interesting offering for sure. And again, you have a perfectly form fitting movement inside it, which is even, I think, more appealing in a way than the rectangular, right? Because who else has this elliptical rectangular movement in their case that's so beautifully displayed?
I mean, Daniel Roth, right? I mean, that's kind of like different proportion, different aspect ratio, but I think that's kind of one of the only manufacturers that really celebrates that particular K shape.
Mm-hmm. But again, they don't. To be frank, in most models, well, I mean, even in their best models, they don't really have movements of this caliber, no pun intended, and certainly
Mm-hmm.
not this sort of finishing. Even in examples belonging to an earlier period, you can, again, you have the tourbillons, you have certain other pieces that offer something quite different, something quite distinct, something very rare and collectible. But overall, um, in terms of, yeah, it's different approach really, because Lange, especially after the first generation, heavily focused on you know in-house calibers, one movement for one watch, um, everything hand finished, every component of the caliber, whether it shows or not. Um, so it's quite different from Daniel Roth in that case. Not to necessarily put down Daniel Roth, but it's a different offering.
I think one of these, I recall one of these selling on Loop This, and I think I had a full bracelet for like under 10,000 not that long ago.
Wow.
I think it was within the last, or it was close to that. For some reason, I'm remembering like a $9,000 number. It was, yeah, it looked kind of like that. Uh, it had, I'm pretty sure it was the exact same reference as this.
Hmm.
But the case had a very odd patination on it. Like the yellow gold started to turn like kind of almost like a pink or like a coppery color.
Yeah.
And I
This is
think
also the smaller size, by the way, so it's probably a little less appealing for the average collector, but still.
looks fine there.
Yeah. I mean, it will be fine for me because, it's a woman's watch, but for the average male, it might be hard to pull off. But you can also see, from the case back, right? It doesn't have those um let me right? This is a little bit more framed, as you see.
Yep.
Whereas there it was, exactly form fitting.
Yeah. So they basically used the same size movement and just made the case a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Because
It
generally,
it
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it does look a lot crisper here. Like when you see how narrow that case back
Hmm.
bezel is
Yeah,
around
absolutely.
the perimeter. I mean, that's pretty sharp looking. I know you're not really looking at that side of the watch that often, but
No, I think that that's important. Again, that the larger model is very much an afterthought, I think, for collectors who wanted the Arcade since it was one of the original four. But when it was introduced, it was supposed to be the ladies' watch among all that four. Like, from between the Lange one, Saxonia, and Tourbillon pour le Mérite, it was kind of the oddball, both in terms of its shape and proportions. So it was only later that it was kind of enlarged in proportions. Here is it's in platinum apparently.
nice. There's nothing quite like a platinum longa.
Man.
Like the way that they silver the dials and the
Mm.
way that that color contrasts. Yeah, I think my taste for like, the longa one is still this kind of you know, it's like a real collection goal for me. Like it's somewhere I'd like to be. Like I think I could probably be there pretty soon, if I strategize. Like
Mhm.
I actually feel like it might not necessarily be the next immediate piece, but possibly like the second one that I get, you know. And forever I was like, no, I got to do yellow gold champagne dial.
Hmm.
But now I'm actually thinking, man, platinum Longa one. That'd be a nice thing to have.
Absolutely. Add it to add it a moon phase, and then you're as good as gold.
Oh,
But
with the day
speaking,
with the day night.
oh my god, speaking of like Art Deco rectangular shaped watches, this is also one of my favorites. This is the Parmigiani Fleurier. Ali Reza was mentioning it in the chat. Um, Kalpa hebdomadaire with the 8-day movement. So you have the power reserve indicator right here at 12, which is marked with Breguet numeral. You have the skeletonized heat blued alpha hands. You have a small seconds dial with also a date indicator at 6. And the movement in this one is amazing as well. Let's see if.
Very nice finishing. Yeah, it's got like all the nice like interior angle
Mhm.
polished anglage. Very sweet. Seems like a larger case though, huh?
Yeah, this is the XL version.
Oh, so there's different sizes though.
Yeah.
Nice. Have you tried one of these on?
Yeah, I think I can barely pull it off, but again, it's you can get it for cheaper than this as well with patience, and even perhaps on this particular listing, since there's uh Okay. See, are you back?
Did you get YouTube back?
No, not really. I mean, I'm on my phone. I don't think I have another connection, so I don't know how
What
long this is
did
going to last.
your internet just crapped out?
Yeah, completely.
That sucks. How's your service normally?
It's been crap for a week. I actually they sent an email a couple of weeks ago talking about, like, oh, please don't worry about the rumors. We're not going bankrupt just yet. And I was like,
What? You're like,
what
what? Who
the
sent out
F?
an email like that? I know you've probably heard many rumors about us going
Yeah.
bankrupt, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, the service provider did just that
Oh
a
my
couple of
god.
months ago. Well, a
Oh my
couple of weeks
god.
ago, and
What a
last week has been
ridiculous
terrible.
what a ridiculous thing to do.
I hope it's not connected to that, and it's just like a normal service interruption of some sort. But it's been, there were a few moments where it was touch and go before too, since I moved in here. So we'll see. We'll see.
There is a crazy I don't know if you could still see the Sotheby's auction, but there's this wild day date dial that I've never seen before. Um what
Which reference is it?
it's the it's a 18238 lot 2234. What is how does it describe this? Oh, ammonite. Am ammonite. It is a crazy looking material. It looks almost synthetic. But I guess it's oh, it's like a fossil. Interesting. It's crazy. Like, to me, what it looks like um is it looks like a bunch of like metal chips or wood chips from like the manufacturing process, like mushed together. But I guess it's a natural some sort of a natural shell, possibly.
Can you hear me?
I could hear you now. Yeah, I couldn't hear you for like a minute or two.
Yeah, this is not going to work because
No,
every time I put the YouTube StreamYard thing in the background, it basically cuts off my mic at some point, if not right away.
damn. I mean, I should probably try to get to bed anyway. I but sorry about the technical difficulties, man. We'll have to I'm sure we'll make up for it again.
At some point. But thank you for jumping on. At least I connected like this and I can properly shut down the stream rather than, going on and on with a blank screen.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of there's a lot of really interesting pieces in this Sotheby's auction. I've just been looking at the catalog ever since we got interrupted, and I don't know. I feel like it would be cool to continue. Maybe I know it's easy to get distracted and just talk about, go off on tangents about other watch tastes and stuff. But I feel like there's some good focal points. So
Oh yeah, yeah. There's like a Philippe Dufort simplicity. There's there are all sorts of FP Jones, all kinds of the usual suspects from Rolex and Patek. There's a bunch of stuff. But yeah, we'll get back to it. I mean, if you're on board, next time you're on, hopefully tomorrow, I'm happy to just go through it, one by one, or we can skip a few here and there, but do it in a dedicated way.
yeah, I mean, unfortunately this week it's a little tough for me. I'm a little reluctant to want to commit to anything. I just,
Of course.
if I am free and I see that you're continuing the stream on the auction specifically, I'll try to think of some of the ones that I think stand out to me as stunners, and
Right.
and then we could talk about those. But
Sounds
yeah,
good, man.
but yeah, this ammonite. Now I'm obsessed with this ammonite dial. I want to do some more research on that.
I don't even know. It sounds like one of those tribes and peoples and clans listed in the Bible.
Oh,
But I will try to.
like the Mennonites.
No, the Mennonites are more modern, I think. But we'll get back to it. We'll get back to it. I appreciate you, man. Thank you
All right.
for the
Yeah,
super chat as well.
it was
from
nice
earlier.
chatting. Good luck with the internet, and make sure they give you a credit for that lost service. You should not have to pay for that.
Maybe we'll see. We'll see. I like to haggle, so I'll figure something out.
Right. All right. Well, good luck. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, man. Good luck moving.
Take care. Thanks. I appreciate it. See ya.
See you, man. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again for your support and presence. If you don't mind, hit the like button so I get something out of this broadcast, out of this live stream. Thank you, St. Peter, again for jumping on and for your super chat earlier. It really does help a lot. I'll be back with you all tomorrow. Hopefully, by the PM, I will have fixed this problem with the connection, but who knows, maybe even earlier. If I can get on earlier and make up for lost time, that would be great. So we'll see. We'll see. Thank you again. JJ in the chat. Alireza as well. Thank you. Goodbye.